that was a seminal moment in my life where it really started a fire of my deeper, passionate love for you.
Yes.
And for what you and your body could do.
Yes.
But then also that I was so welcome in that world.
Yes.
Because for a long time men haven't been, or they haven't been able to throw themselves in. And so that was probably a big life-changing moment for me, because it reinforced why I was there at that exact point in time.
Yes.
And yeah.
Hello, Quanta folks, and welcome to episode 9 of Bark the Shoulds podcast. I am Jodi from QuantiMama.
And welcome back. I am McGill from QuantiPapa.
You looked at me like you weren't sure who you were.
Well,
okay?
You know, you got to check these things sometimes.
You do. So today we are talking about life-changing moments. And when I first thought about this topic, I had some ideas around the things that had led us to be in the place that we're in now.
Okay.
And one of the things that came to me was the birth course we did when we were pregnant with our now 14, almost 15-year-old, which was calm birth, which led us onto this sort of pathway of, I guess, being mindful of the energetics and being aware of, you know, really incredible facilitators and teachers like Joe Dispenza and Bruce Lipton and a lot of those people, Candace Pert, and there's so many of them. They're fabulous. That was one of the things that I really wanted to talk about. But the funny thing was that when I was reflecting on it earlier today, one of the things that came through about life-changing moments, and the reason why I'm really keen to talk about this is to help us look at the moments that stand out in our life. So McGill and I have been around for 47 odd years. And when you think about how many seconds there are in a day and how a moment can happen in a second, and over the span of 47 years, for your memory to pick out really accentuated or punctuated moments that have left a mark or had an impact in some way that has a ripple effect on your life, it's really interesting. And the ones that I really find curious are the ones that feel like they have an energetic force behind them. So that's what I'm curious about talking about. And what I was going to say was one of the things that occurred to me, and I was thinking about it today, was I had this moment, which was BM, so it was before McGill, and it was early. I know. Can you believe there was such a time? I know,
there's such a time. How can you even remember that?
I know. Look, it's all very hazy except for this one moment, of course. And I remember being in my car alone. I was on my way to a day shift because I was, you know, freshly minted Ambo. And so it must have been like 6 a.m. Because I was on the way to a 7 o'clock shift. And I think I've told you about this. I was at an intersection that was sort of on the crest of a hill, not far from where I lived. And at this intersection, it was just me and this other, I want to say it was like a small truck sitting there, and we had a red light. And you know how you always sit there and go, red lights, like what's the point when no one else is around? Like the streets were seriously deserted. Anyway, I have been known as a bit of a lead foot in the past. Obviously always safely within the speed limits, but I do like to take off at lights and be like a little Fangio sometimes. And I had a little red car, so it wanted to go fast. And anyway, all those silly
Probably
things.
had the music playing, you were bopping along.
Absolutely.
Like, yay, I'm so special, I'm an Ambo, I'm driving to work at 6 a.m. in the morning.
Are you picking on young Jodi?
No, I'm just putting it in perspective.
Okay, thanks.
Love young Jodi.
Just so you know, you fell in love with young Jodi, so don't be too hard on her.
I certainly did.
Anyway, the whole point about this, and this was just like any other drive to work, the whole point about this experience was the light turned green and I was just about to hit the accelerator and shoot through the intersection. I just for a moment paused and looked to the truck that was next to me, and this guy met my eyes and he didn't do anything, but I swear to God, as clear as day in my head, I heard him say, stop or wait. It was wait. And it was so clear. Anyway, I just went, okay. And so I put my foot back on the brake and I just waited for a minute, which was, I mean, it's just so unusual for me because I see a green light and I just want to go, don't I?
Yeah. Got places to go.
Off and racing. I have things to do. I got shit to do. Anyway, of course, for some strange reason, I stopped. I paused. And then next thing you know, this other car comes belting through perpendicular to us. We wouldn't have seen them because they were just, it's blind hill straight through the intersection. And I most certainly would not be here today if I had have gone, which was my usual practice. Now, I don't know if you've had an experience like that, and I'm curious, McGill, what comes up when you hear that story. However, what I want to say about it is not so much the sliding doors moment of getting cleaned up and meeting my maker at that moment when I was, the plump old age of like 24, 25 years old, versus being here now and having wisdom. But what that was it was my first experience of essentially what I would now classify as, or I would phrase as, telepathic communication. And it was clear. And I was a very headstrong young woman. I don't know if that probably takes you by surprise. It probably does because I seem quite demure now. But back then, you couldn't tell me what to do, really. I was fiery, redhead, and very passionate.
And you're 24. You're living life.
Yeah,
you're in it.
That's
you're,
right.
Up to your neck and going, now what? Throw more at me. What else can I do?
I know. That's exactly right. So the reason why that memory came through was when I thought about life-changing moments. Yes, there have been decisions we've made that have put us on our pathway, and you can certainly say that you might have experiences or make decisions or things that impact you that perhaps didn't feel so good, but later you can sit in appreciation of where it put you. And I think there's a richness to that, finding gratitude within anything that happens that leaves you in this place now. But in that moment, I think what I had was an experience of essentially the quantum field, which I find super fascinating. And I think you would have to be denying a whole lot of irrefutable things if you said the quantum field didn't exist. I mean, it's just nonsense. It absolutely does.
Well, people might know it by a different name, or they might interact with it differently. But at the end of the day, what I would say is in this moment, in this exact moment in time when you're sitting at those lights and you're about to charge through, and no reason at all, whether he said stop, whether the universe said stop, at that point in time, somebody had your back. Yeah. Something stopped you from going. Some people might call it a sixth sense. Some people might call it an omen. Whatever you want to call it, at that point in time, it is a sliding doors moment. You go through that intersection, you have an accident, you live, you die, who knows where you end up.
I just sense it wasn't even sliding doors, though. It was like it wasn't my time. So it was like there were so many things that meant I didn't drive through that intersection. Like I stopped and looked at the guy, which was unusual. I heard the voice clear in my head, and there's no way you could have heard. I mean, it was winter, so windows were up, heater was on, all that sort of stuff. So to me, it's not even, I want to move away from the idea it was a sliding doors moment, because that always makes me think that perhaps it puts you, has the potential to put you in a lax state. Like, what could have been,
It does, but I would say it's a moment in time where you chose to listen to that voice.
Yeah.
One, you chose to be open enough whether you realise or not to hear it. And then not only did you hear it, you chose to listen to it rather than going, well, it's a green light, I'm driving through.
Yes.
Even at your, bopping around redhead, fiery 24-year-old self going, I've got a green light, I'm going to drive.
Yes.
For whatever reason, at that exact moment in time, something
held me
pay
there.
attention.
Yeah. And so I suppose the thing that leads into was I didn't have an appreciation or an articulation around what that meant. But if that happened to me now, I wouldn't question it. So we live in a way, and maybe our experiences have led us to this place, but we live in a way that we pick up on those universal pebbles, stones, and bricks, don't we? I mean, we notice those nudges, and we actually don't allow them, generally speaking, to go to bricks, because we notice the universal nudges of what I would say is the collective energy field, or the higher self, or the source connection, or the soul, or, something that's greater than the physical self.
Definitely. But to make that just a little bit clearer, Jodi's had this amazing
Are you saying I was unclear?
Well, you sort of jumped ahead a little bit. Well,
I'm just talking how I talk.
You've got what you wanted to say, but for those of you that want to actually understand it, Jodi,
that was not very nice.
No, it wasn't. But Jodi has this beautiful saying that if the universe wants your attention, it throws pebbles at you. And then if you don't listen, it'll throw a stone. And if you're still not listening, it's going to throw a brick. And, you can apply that to so many aspects of your life, of going, I feel a bit run down this week. Maybe I need to rest. Maybe I need to change my diet. Maybe I need to nourish my body a little bit more. No, it'll be all right. It'll be all right. A couple of days later, the nose gets blocked, the throat's sore, a bit coughy. No, it'll be right. I'll push through. I might use something to help me get through. And then I'll be right. I'll be right. I'll be right. And 3 or 4 days later, you can't get out of bed. So, I mean, that's a very basic step.
Well, that's listening to the physicality of it, though. I mean, that's creating a toxic environment for the fish in the tank, right?
Yes, but it's also showing that, if we're not listening to the signs that we're given, very rudimentary one, but not listening to the signs that we're given, then they're going to compound, they're going to multiply. So in the universe's instance, it gives us a sign, it gives us a pebble, it gives us a nudge, all those sorts of things. And if we hear that and we interact with it, and the universe goes, hey, you're on the way, I'll be back when I need to give you another one.
Well, that's been our experience, because I think once we became more practiced at noticing where the quantum energy was pushing us, or the universal field is maybe how I'd call it. Some people refer to as manifestation. So it's this idea that you are working in synchronicity and harmony with the energetic field around you, which is always interacting with other things. And so if it's for your highest good, then generally speaking, well, I would say universally speaking, things will work out for you. But the highest good doesn't always appear like some kind of, rainbows and lollipops, does it? Sometimes it's an experience that has you really challenged and very uncomfortable, because you need that growth.
Yeah, and it's got you to a point where if you're ready for the change or not, the universe is going to really heap it on until you either accept it or you keep trying to fight back and push back against it and see, who knows where that leads.
Yes.
But I can't imagine it would be an overly happy place.
Yeah. So when we talk about life-changing moments, what comes up for you?
Such a big question.
Apart from our friend the Chroma that we met. We met together.
Gary the Chroma.
Gary the Chroma.
That's my most definitive life-changing moment, but that's another story.
Go Gary.
Go Gary. I don't know. I guess I probably never had an ability to put it into words when I was younger. Growing up, and we all grow up and we have these different experiences and these different moments in time, exactly as we're talking about. But for some reason, I always felt that I had something just in the background going, don't head down that path, or don't move towards that, or get involved in that. Didn't always listen to it, and we didn't always work out the way I thought. But I remember, really in particular, I was 16. I was spending a lot of the time doing a lot of work, and was very closely aligned with an uncle of mine, and he and working on his farm. Loved it. Loved being out in nature. No dramas, getting up at 5:30 in the morning and working to 6 or 7 at night. I just loved it. But then and it was getting to the point where he was starting to discuss about me actually taking over the farm. His children had all moved out, and he had one son that was estranged at that point in time. And he had big plans, and was just moving me towards this goal of what he wanted. And I loved it, absolutely loved it. But for some reason, I just couldn't do it. I couldn't say, yes, I'm going to do that, despite what was offered to me. And there were some really big incentives that were offered, and especially for a 16-year-old, 17-year-old kid. Here's your income for the next 12 months because we're going to be making this, and here's this and here's that. And we'll get you a car and we'll get you this and we'll get you that and we'll set up your life and,
So everything's solved.
Yeah.
So now with reflection and with, I think because you're a very intuitive person, and you can articulate that. So now with how you understand your intuition and so forth, is there something that you can identify within that held you back? Or was it a set of things that happened that you thought was sort of courtesy, now that you would say from the universal field, that prevented you from taking that option? Like where was the momentum for the decision not going that way?
That all came from me. There was really nothing blocking it. I mean, nothing that I can immediately go, oh, that's why I don't want to be here, or that's why I'm just happy to come up and visit. But and it's one of these amazing things, that I didn't take that step, because a few years later, a lot of stuff came out in relation to that particular person, that whether it occurred or not, I don't know, but things just wouldn't have worked out.
Yeah.
And there was a lot of
hurt.
In
allegations.
There's a lot of hurt within that family that I would have been stepping into, and suddenly would have been there potentially with somebody that doesn't align with who I am.
Yes.
So what I would say is I had this experience of being held back from committing into it.
Yeah.
Being held back and held back and held back, and then getting what did I use? I think I used the excuse of I want to finish year 12. I'll finish year 12 and then we'll work it all out, and I'll have my VCE and I'll have this and I'll have that. And so that was my little safety thing that I pulled on. And then in that time, things began to unravel between relationships on the other side of that family that, would have had a massive impact on especially a 17, 18-year-old kid, if I had been committed and living in that environment. So, I think that's the first time I've had that little, some people call it the hackles on the back of their neck, or just a little bump, just a bit of gut feeling. Hairs on the back of your neck.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, like, you could definitely look at that as a very bittersweet thing. And perhaps, next week McGill will tell me that we're about to buy a farm and he's going to realise his lifelong passion of being a farmer and milking cows at 4 a.m. And good luck to you, sweetie. I'll slip in for those ones.
Yeah. Well.
But I think that there's a richness in just noticing that, and I don't think you need to get emotionally involved with it. But there's an opportunity, I think, to be grateful for the way things work out, and notice that it wouldn't have, been all sunshine and daisies had that opportunity come to pass, because obviously how it unfolded afterwards.
Yeah, definitely. But in terms of coming back to the seminal moments, or the moments where something bigger than you is helping you, so some people might look at that and go, oh, you probably interacted with the people in the family and then there was just a vibe and a feeling. Well, you know what, that's part of the energy that's out there as well.
Well, that's a collective field.
That's
that
a
we're
collective
talking
field,
about.
yeah. So it's not that I've suddenly tapped into something or anything like that for me. But it's just, it is what it is. I was open and receptive to what was going on around me, and it probably led me down a path where I otherwise may have ended up in a situation that wasn't as great as what it appeared to be at first. Now, the other thing you talked about in there was calm birth.
Yes.
So,
well, I think birth can be one of those life-changing moments.
It should be a life-changing moment for everybody involved.
Should it? Should it?
Fuck the shoulds. It must be.
Fuck the should. Yeah, I know. We need our 7-year-old in here, because every time we say should now, he says fuck the should, and I said, even
out in public with someone else says
all the time. I said ought yesterday. He goes, what does ought mean? And I went, well, it's an alternative to should. And I said, we ought to do it. Fuck the oughts. And I went, oh, crap, I'm going to run out of should alternatives. I've got to stop educating the kid. Yeah. Anyway, I digress. What I wanted to pick up on, and it's funny because I actually want to talk about this. It's something that I think has been sitting in an interesting space for me for quite some time, because there's always been something around women who have really positive births. They're not able to celebrate them in our society. You are bonded by surviving birth. That was my first appreciation of birth obviously after giving birth, but when I joined the obligatory mothers group that you do when you have a first baby.
You've got to have a war story.
Apparently,
and my war story has got to be better than your story.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, that often leads into a negative story.
Well, one of our beautiful friends who I made at that, mothers group with our 6-week-old babies was the only other woman in that room that had had a positive birth experience. And we ended up, we called ourselves a splinter faction because we left the group after not very long because there was just this constant revisiting of these war stories of women that had survived their birth. And I don't want to take away from those women's experiences. That's theirs to own. But it saddened me that we had very positive experiences and we couldn't even share that. It was too uncomfortable. And I've been in the birth world for 13 years now.
Yep.
13 years supporting women in birth. And it saddens me at a cellular level that the women I'm meeting, so many of them, don't know the richness of what birth can do for people.
And it's not just the women; it's the partners.
Well, it is. It's a family unit,
and it's and I think I want to pull you back.
Okay,
because I think you're missing the amazing magic here.
Yeah.
When we got pregnant with Tom, our first QK1. Jodi wanted to do calm birth. She wanted to have a real, she wanted to be a mum, and she wanted to do everything positive and possible to have a nice, calm birth with people around her that supported her and loved her and bring this child into the world in exactly the same fashion. Now, so
I wasn't hung up on the place though, and I got more vigilant the next birth, didn't I? I was like, let's just go to the hospital, public hospital, free experience, use the public system that's available there. We don't need to pay money for, an expensive care provider. We'll just do it cheap. Doesn't need to be expensive having a baby.
No, there's one born every minute.
Yeah, correct.
But so that's Jodi, right? So Jodi's set, this is what I want, this is her experience. And I remember at this point in time trying to have a conversation with my mother about births and birth experiences. And, I went to where I could get some information because I wanted to wholeheartedly throw myself into this as well because it's super important to Jodi. It's my child that's coming into the world. It's our child together that we've made. So I am, not just there for the 30 seconds of fun at the start. This is
everyone's going to know we're fast now.
This is the serious stuff. This is this is the next step. It's one thing becoming a parent.
Yeah.
It's another thing becoming a father or a mother to that child. And so I sort of made that decision. You know what? I'm a bit like Jodi as well. I throw myself in, balls and all. And anyhow, I went to my mum to talk to her and was immediately shut down. She could not talk about my birth. She wouldn't even discuss anything. She couldn't get past that. I couldn't even ask her about my sister's birth because she'd had a negative birth experience and she was never, ever able to talk about it.
Yeah, she really had that trapped trauma within her, didn't she?
Yeah, and loved my mum to absolute ends of the earth.
It's not about whether you love your mum.
She had a lot of
sad that
she had a lot of trapped traumas that she couldn't let go. And this is one, especially after we'd had all of our 4 kids and we'd had obviously hospital experiences and then some home births. And once we'd had those things where there was the opportunity for her to hopefully feel safe talking to her own son about the birth. But that, even though I brought it up a few times, that never arrived. But I feel that at that point where you've decided what you've wanted, I've made my commitment to that, a different level of understanding came into it for us. And then we did our calm birth classes and your mum came as well because she was going to be part of the birthing team.
And she was a fabulous asset.
She was. She was amazing. She threw herself into it as well. And then we sort of moved through and then we get to this, for me, in this experience, and I'll let you talk in a minute, the actual birth. I mean, we're getting home from work and you're laying down in bed going, apologising for laying down in bed and what, pretty big belly you got there, darling. You've been Or was it your growing eyelids?
That's it.
You're allowed to be tired. And then you said, oh, my God, I'm weeing and I can't stop. Oh, no, it's my waters are breaking. And then we got in the
Worst
car.
place to do it in bed.
Got in the car, drove into the hospital, and then went through this experience where, and if you've done calm birth or you've done any form of supportive birth as the partner, you are extremely involved in every aspect of it. You're doing breathing practice, you're talking affirmations through, you are as connected as you can be. The only thing you're not doing is necessarily having the contractions at that point in time, but you're riding each wave of the contractions as you go. And that level of connection really took a little spark. And that's sort of, I guess, for me, that was a seminal moment in my life where it really started a fire of my deeper, passionate love for you and for what you and your body could do.
Yes.
But then also that I was so welcome in that world.
Yes.
Because for a long time, men haven't been, or they haven't been able to throw themselves in. And so that was probably a big life-changing moment for me because it reinforced why I was there at that exact point in time.
Yes.
And
and we have reflected on that first birth in particular being, one of our most incredible life-changing moments because it really solidified our relationship. And particularly for me, it gave me a sense of my capacity, which is as unlimited as I wish it to be in the given moment. I always have more energy than I need. So I have this ability to achieve whatever I set my mind to and what is in alignment for me. And I really got that knowing, that belief just got sown through my cells in that experience. And I think one of the things that I see in society now is that we are big fans of comfort and we don't often give ourselves the opportunity for discomfort, finding comfort within the discomfort. And I suspect that we would all be richer for being a little bit uncomfortable a little bit more often. Because one of the things, birth is one of those situations where people, for the most part, just don't want to be uncomfortable. And there's a litany of reasons for why we ought to give. No 7-year-old here. Why we have the opportunity to honour natural birth, like all sorts of reasons for the woman, for the baby, for the unfolding of the process and the potential to shunt it out of alignment. There's all sorts of reasons, but more perverse than that is society's willingness to offer comfort in something that is a natural experience. And more than it being a natural experience, it is the most exhilarating experience I have had in my life. And we have done 4 natural births. I would consider the first one actually the most medicalized and the most interventionist. And it was like we did have to push to have a natural experience within that one. The other 3, and this is where the environment can make a big difference, but the other 3 being home births were really, they had no intervention whatsoever.
No, they didn't. And they just happened. I laugh how you say the first one was probably the most medical, there's the most amount of medicalised stuff involved.
Medicalised, yeah.
That's what I'm after.
Yeah.
Clearly I wasn't the AMBO.
Yeah.
But then we got down to the 4.
The midwives weren't even there.
Yeah, no one made it. It was just basically us and,
I know.
And your mum and our kids.
Yes.
All there, and Caitlin.
Yes.
I think our beautiful chiropractor made it as well.
Yes, and our doula. We do birth with lots of people.
Yeah. Did she make it?
Absolutely.
Steph did make it.
Oh my God, love Steph.
She's amazing.
Steph, what a legend. Caitlin, our chiro. Anyway, it does sound like lots of people, but it didn't feel like lots of people for the last one because, the care providers weren't there. The thing I suppose I want to talk about as we circle around to some kind of closure is that these life-changing moments quite often, if they don't just happen upon you for your higher good, say like not driving through an intersection and getting cleaned up by some idiot, if they actually sit in those spaces where we think there's discomfort, and instead of taking the opportunity to experience the discomfort and see what's on the other side, we opt out for a more, I want to say like beige experience, but that sanitized experience where it's managed and it's a bit more known. You're not in the unknown. And those life-changing moments, they don't hang out in the sanitized spaces. Those life-changing moments hang out in the unknown, in the discomfort, in the new, in the newness of experiences. And it is, once you trust in the process of the potential experience and what you can get out of it, there is a depth of richness that words cannot put to. And I could go and speak to 100 different life coaches, and I strongly suspect, no disrespect to them because I know they do a lot of good, but they will never encapsulate and promote within me the feelings I got of my own powerful ability and own
capabilities,
incredible, incredible. Oops, sorry, incredible capacity to do shit I'd never done before, like squeeze a watermelon out of a lemon, stretchy lemon-sized hole. But like that. They have no ability to do that. That has to be done as you walk through that proverbial fire.
So we sort of started and we spoke about getting our little nudges by the universe.
Yes.
So we sort of get to a point, and then our birth ones was a commitment by both of us. So we didn't sort of have to be nudged into that one.
No.
And then coming up to, I guess, more recent times, and we're skipping ahead decades as we go here.
It's only the memorable ones we're talking about.
True, but even in the last probably 3 or 4 years, for so many people, they have had to stretch into ways that they just didn't think or want to be involved in, and they're probably still struggling with some of that. I know I am with some of the changes that I've had to make, and some of the experiences I've had in that time, and the sitting in the discomfort. I know part of it where Jodi's looked at me and gone, well, I'm leaving you there. I love you, I support you, all that sort of stuff. But
not leaving you.
Yeah, well, I'm leaving you sitting in that discomfort.
Yeah,
this is your discomfort.
Right.
Yes, you are uncomfortable, and I empathise and sympathise.
Yes,
but you got to work through that shit and see what comes out the other side, and have those moments where you come out and you are committed to that new path, and you are going to work towards where you're going, not be stuck back in the muck where you were. And for so many people,
I see that your soul is luminescent. I mean, I see that, right?
You say all the right things.
Well, it's the truth of it. You know that. I see that McGill's soul is luminescent. And so who am I to save him from his own life-changing experience? He has been incredibly brave and composed, particularly over the last 2 years where real changes have occurred.
And probably the greatest challenges that I've had.
Yeah.
And they're still ongoing, some of them.
Well, look, every time you go through one of those challenges, you come out the other side stretched in a different place. And it's a beautiful thing to witness. But one of the things that it takes great capacity to allow your loved ones to sit in discomfort and just love them no matter what. And sometimes loving them is walking away saying exactly that. I love you. I'm going to leave you in that space because you have the capacity to find the way out of this, but it's yours to own. It's not mine to dictate.
You have the potential to take the power away from me in that situation.
Yes. Yeah.
I almost want to say to the universe, could I go back and do the birth side of things? Like seriously, because this stretching and capacity that I'm learning about myself at the moment is really challenging, and it can leave you somewhat uncomfortable.
Absolutely, but there's gold in that space, and every time you stretch and move out of the initial, I think, crisis feeling of that unknown, because it is. I mean, being in the unknown feels like crisis, doesn't it?
Well, yeah, and for
Deeply
most
uncomfortable.
of us, that's as close to a crisis as
Yes.
we're going to get.
So the key to me is, once you notice you're out of that, then you find something around you that can feel good and nourish your soul, and you can feel some gratitude and actually pat yourself on the back for moving through yet another challenging time and breaking down old patterns of belief that usually are just anchored to identity and don't really mean a great deal. They're not anchored to your soul
And
and what it wants for you.
the other thing is, as we're rounding out, because
Yes.
we're getting up in time, as a result of these experiences that we've had, I feel I'm far more open to listening to what's going on around me, where those ideas are coming from, where the nudge is pushing me, where the sway is going, and that sort of stuff. And so I feel far more in alignment with myself, and I just see. And funnily enough, I had this amazing conversation with Timmy Tarko today, who rang me, and he was just saying, so have you sorted out what you're going to do? Because last time you were just sort of going to cruise along and see what was happening, and I haven't spoken to him for about 3 or 4 months. And I tried to answer his question, and I thought, you know what, that's exactly what I've done. I've just sort of bobbed along, cruised along, done some things like been on a podcast that I never would have done. And just having a go at so many different things. And the richness of life is starting to really reveal itself.
Yeah. But it's a motherfucker along the way, isn't it?
God, yeah.
It really is testing.
Yeah. Sorry, that birth thing, give me the drugs. Joking.
Boring.
Totally joking.
I mean, no judgment, but boring. Seriously. Just don't narcotize yourself to life. You're going to be dead for plenty of time. The whole point of living is to experience it, all of it. And
the human condition.
You will understand your capacity. And I will leave you with one thought. I invite you to do this if it resonates. One thing that I took as a daily practice when I felt I needed to have a bit more discipline around my thought flow and finding, I think, the positive within my space, I created these little itty bitty mini meditations, I call them. They are, how long would I do it? Like, was it 45 seconds or something?
Only 30 or 40 seconds.
Yeah. It would be some kind of statement or affirmation, and I would set an alarm on my phone, and there's still one that goes up in my old phone, and it's really unique timing. I come home from work and it always seems to be just as this thing's going off again around 4 p.m. And the one statement that's left on there is, I live in synchronicity and alignment. And I haven't deleted that one off the old phone. It's just there pinging at me every single day. No, actually,
I got it today.
Did you?
It was clearly my turn to hear that message.
And look, this may resonate for you, it might not, it might seem silly, but when you create a practice for yourself, again, you move into the unknown and the discomfort, and then you have this opportunity to start changing the way you think about things, including these life-changing moments. And so there's an opportunity to change your perspective, just like we talked about in a previous episode. And when you do that, you may actually change the emotion attached with those life-changing moments. And then suddenly, with that perspective, comes an awareness of the beauty of it.
That's good.
Yeah. Thank you for listening. We'll look forward to joining you next time. Do you have anything you really want to say?
No, I think you're onto it.
All right. Nice one. Bye, beautiful people.
Bye.